What started as a relocation between closest friends turned into an unexpected tragedy is the subject of today's investigation. Under the same roof, two young women who had been inseparable for years began a new chapter. However, one stopped responding to texts, skipped work, and vanished within a few weeks. Obsession, dominance, and something far worse were exposed in what appeared to be a straightforward roommate quarrel. Everything changed when cops unearthed something in that flat. At the beginning of August 2024, 24-year-old Tiara Mills moved to Jacksonville South Side and settled into Unit 3C at the Sunrise Palms complex. She aspires to be a social worker. After Tiara left a long-term relationship, her close friend Camila West, 26, extended the invitation and the flat belonged to her. The ladies' friendship went all the way back to their high school days. Sharing the identity of a chosen family and frequently calling each other sisters without blood, they established a strong online presence. It wasn't long ago that Tiara left her childhood home on Jacksonville's north side. Shonda Mills, her mother, employed by a nearby primary school. Darius was a city maintenance worker, and he was her father. Tiara was their only child, and her parents were a working-class couple. She had a reputation for being kind, imaginative, and driven in her hometown. While volunteering at a nearby shelter, she became interested in social work. She was getting ready to enroll at Florida A&M University that summer while she prepared her transfer paperwork. In the long run, she hoped to launch a nonprofit after finishing her degree. She intended for her relocation to Sunrise Palms to is a short-term chance for her to save money, become financially independent, and concentrate on her schoolwork. Please tell us in the comments from where you are viewing this so that we can begin to dig further. Your feedback is much appreciated. If you want to be sure you don't miss any of our future videos, subscribe now. She was assisted in packing by Shondanda. Outside the complex, she recalled hugging her daughter, giving her advice, and watching Tiara wave from the breezeway steps as they said farewell. It seemed like everything was fine for the first 3 weeks. Tiara sent daily texts. She did. Video kept turning up to work at a teenage counseling center and made nightly calls to her parents. On the other hand, Shondanda realized her daughter hadn't contacted her since the morning of August 22. Nobody returned my calls. Not a single message was read. When Shondanda first saw Tiara, she assumed she was too busy or overwhelmed to pay attention. However, worry transformed into dread by the afternoon that followed. Shondanda and Darius made the journey to Sunrise Palms on August 25. The door was answered by Camila West. She looked anxious and untidy. Camila allegedly told police that Tiara had departed from the flat 2 nights prior to their meeting because she had recently met someone online, according to Shondanda's subsequent testimony to them. According to her, Tiara hurriedly gathered her belongings and departed, claiming that she wanted some space. Since then, Camila maintained, she had heard nothing from her. According to Shondanda, the explanation was lacking key details. Whenever Tiara left the house, she made sure to inform someone. Unlike her usual behavior, her phone was turned off. Her boss verified. Her absence from work was evident. There were no outward indications of wrongdoing, but a cousin said they got a private message from Tiara a few days ago reading, "Something doesn't feel right here anymore." The apartment was neat and tidy, although not completely clean. There was no evidence of a fight or damage to the shared bedroom. A smaller number of garments in Tiara's closet indicated that she might have taken some items with her. Unease was rising, but the police had little information to act on. The authorities formally reported the individual missing, however. During the first 2 days, the case did not move forward. Building management was called by a neighbor who lives directly above apartment 3C on August 28. A pungent smell, they said, was emanating from the balcony below theirs. It had grown worse over the course of many days. Workers on the property got in touch with the sheriff's office in Jacksonville. That night, police officers showed up on Camila West's apartment balcony. Secreted within a big plastic container sandwiched between deck chairs and pool floats. Police found something disturbing. Duct tape had been used to close the container. The origin of the smell was revealed upon opening it. There was a half-clothed human body inside. Its decay had progressed to a more advanced stage. Bruising and discoloration were observed on the wrists and face and neck, according to the officers. Anyone in the flat at the time of the finding, Camila West, was taken into custody for questioning at the scene. She broke into sobs when asked to identify the victim. She informed the authorities, "I didn't do anything. The body was retrieved and taken to the Duval County Medical Examiner's office. It had been placed there by someone else. Dental records and tattoos were used to confirm the identity later on. Tiara Mills was the one who passed away. Strangulation was the method of death. The inquiry into the homicide started right away. Evidence of strangling was found during the formal autopsy conducted by the Duval County Medical Examiner's office. Tiara suffered a broken hyoid bone. Along her neck, you could see deep ligature markings. Cyanotic lips were hers. Significant signs of bruises on the wrists that is typical of a restrained person. She had fought back, according to the defensive wounds on her knees and arms. Her last known contact was on August 22, which coincides with the estimated time of her death. Several inconsistencies emerged from the first interviews with Camila West. As she had originally said, Tiara had gone off to meet someone and never came back. Tiara, she explained later, had been drinking excessively before she went unconscious. A third iteration features Camila. Asserted that she had woken up to discover Tiara gone after they had a dispute. She completely avoided talking about violence. Nonetheless, a violent death was indicated by the forensic findings. According to the toxicology results, Tiara did not have any sedatives or alcohol in her bloodstream. She hadn't died while sleeping. In the wee hours of August 29, the formal notice arrived at the Mills home. Shondanda Mills reportedly passed out at the sound of the words, according to those in attendance. Her alleged capture by Darius Mills occurred just before she reached the porch, the ground. The family had been leaving voicemails on Tiara's phone daily in the hopes that she would return their calls. The identification of the body put a stop to that optimism. An assortment of sociology books and journals written by Tiara's hand were discovered in her childhood bedroom. For some time, she had been keeping track of her intentions to transfer to Florida A&M. She had a signed, virtually finished application in her bag, and it was almost time to send it. Dated August 19, it was written just 3 days before she passed away. Crime scene investigation. Specialists went back to the residence to perform a more comprehensive search. Faint, smeared fingerprints were discovered on the balcony, under the bin. Some were Camila West's. Investigators cracked open a laundry basket in the living room. They found a pillowcase splattered with blood inside. Under the sink in the restroom, they found a bottle of strong bleach and a set of rubber gloves. Despite the attending officer's earlier claims that the flat was immaculate, it now seemed deliberate. The standard cleaning cabinet was empty. The surfaces had just been wiped off. Examining Camila's cell phone led authorities to a search history that contained information about reporting a missing person, storing bodies, the duration before a body stinks, and whether vinegar can alleviate that stench. It was clear from the pattern that someone was trying to clean up the area and hastily decomposing everything. On the evening of August 22, no one contacted the emergency services. It appeared as though Camila's over the phone to inform any relative or acquaintance of Tiara's health status. All through that night and into the early hours of the morning, her phone had stayed on. By this point, the case had been officially labeled as a homicide. Camila West is currently being jailed without bond while authorities investigate charges of concealment of a human body. Assassination accusations had not been formally lodged. The actual evidence, however, ran counter to all of Camila's explanations. Duval County medical examiners performed the autopsy. What the investigators had began to suspect was validated by the examiner. Death came for Tiara Mills with a rumble. Clearly, she had fought for quite some time. She had attempted to defend herself, as evidenced by the defensive wounds, scratches, bruises, and contusions that ran down her forearms. There were indications of blunt injuries to her ribs. It seemed like her knees had been scraped against the floor, as if she had fallen or been restrained. It was clear from these wounds, together with the severe ligature scars and fractured hyoid bone, that she had been strangled during a physical confrontation. Underneath Tiara's fingernails, forensic evidence was even more telling. Camila West was positively identified by technicians who obtained her DNA. It was highly probable that the skin cells found in the sample were deposited during a battle. For a while, Camila pretended she couldn't remember getting the scratches on her forearm that investigators were examining. She made a nebulous reference to working outdoors and picking up some tough boxes in a subsequent interview. She completely avoided acknowledging that she had an argument with Tiara. With her. Claims had changed on several occasions. Tiara allegedly rushed out after a disagreement in one version. In another, she stated that the flat was deserted when she woke up from a nap. The version of events she most often recounted, that Tiara had left willingly to meet someone, was at odds with the digital and physical proof. Detectives have come to the conclusion that Camila's statements are not credible at this point in the inquiry. Beyond the apartment, the forensics team continued their search. In order to get entry to Tiara's account on Apple's cloud service, which she had previously utilized for routine data backups. Inside, experts discovered a string of voice notes she made in the days preceding her passing. Of particular note was an entry from August 17. Tiara whispered under her breath, "She's starting to watch everything I do. If something happens to me, please look here." The file was time-stamped and unaltered. Tiara also characterized Camila as becoming more controlling in screenshots of their text chats with friends. Something to say to an ex dash. "She wants me to only need her. It's not healthy." Another message sent 3 days before her death stated, "She acts like she owns my time. I'm starting to feel boxed in." These messages clearly depicted a relationship that was deteriorating, characterized by emotional manipulation and possessiveness. Members of the Sunrise Palms complex were contacted by investigators. The night Tiara vanished, a woman residing in Unit 3E, which is next to Camila and Tiara's flat, heard a raucous altercation. It was two voices, one yelling quite loudly and the other sobbing, she reported. Suddenly, everything was silent. At the time, she didn't report it since she thought it was just a domestic issue that had ended. The findings from the crime scene, witness accounts, digital records, and autopsy all came together to make a unified story. The evidence that the detectives had gathered was handed over to the state attorney's office. Claiming second-degree murder and unlawfully concealing a human body, Camila West was formally charged on September 2, 2024. As well as thwarting an ongoing criminal probe. Appeal dismissed. A not guilty plea was made by Camila. She described Tiara's death as an unfortunate accident via her public defender. Private funeral services for Tiara were conducted by the Mills family on September 6. Members of Tiara's church, as well as her family, friends, and previous classmates and co-workers, were in attendance during the event. Husband Darius and mother Shandanda remained mute as they strode behind the coffin. There was no official announcement made that day. Presenters brought to mind a picture of Tiara when she was 9 years old, smiling and clutching a book, rests atop the closed coffin. The funeral home procession was escorted by police as it made its way to Evergreen Cemetery. There was both practical and emotional support from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office's victim advocacy team. In addition to assisting Shandanda and Darius with the regular post-charging procedure, they were also asked to prepare a victim impact statement for the upcoming trial. Just behind the scenes, prosecutors started piecing together a detailed timeline from the ever-expanding collection of digital and forensic evidence. The case had a solid basis. A forensic trail suggesting physical aggression, an obvious motivation stemming from emotional dependence, and a recorded effort to conceal the murder. The next step was to establish intent and determine if Camila West's behavior leading up to and following Tiara's death was deliberate or a result of spontaneous escalation. Midway through the year 2024, the prosecution had started compiling a comprehensive timeline of the night that Tiara Mills passed away. They were able to reconstitute the crucial time between 10:30 p.m. and midnight with the help of digital forensic investigators and data from telecommunications. That happens on August 22. For their case, that window would be crucial. It was at 10:41 p.m. when Tiara's phone was last seen doing anything. While still wide awake, she texted a pal a brief message. "Something is off." Tiara had been evasive for days, but the receiver later told police that she had been feeling more and more anxious. The message was taken for a subtle indication of danger. Her gadget began to malfunction at 12 minutes after the clock struck 12. It was left off at that. On the other hand, Camila West's phone was going strong all night long. There were no lengthy intervals of inactivity in her screen activity. The prosecution's case hinges on a string of internet queries that her device recorded at 2:17 a.m. What does a dead body smell like, and how long does it take for a body to smell, were among the queries typed into the browser. The search terms were, like, and, can vinegar cover smell of decay, and they occurred within 4 hours after Tiara's final reply. This morning at 7:32 a.m., Camila contacted her supervisor at a nearby drugstore first thing in the morning. She asked for the day off and said she was sick. As part of their profile of post-crime conduct, investigators incorporated this message. Camila was seen by building management leaving the rear stairs that morning with a plastic bag and a container of bleach, according to their report. While the investigation into digital proof, they discovered further discrepancies. Someone with Camila's build was seen leaving the Sunrise Palms building at around 3:12 a.m. in surveillance footage obtained from the complex's side lot. Along the sidewalk, she seemed to be pulling what looked like a big laundry basket. The trash can had a somber towel draped over it. At no point that night or the following night did any footage of Kiera leaving the unit match. According to the investigation, this was done in an effort to hide or move the corpse, before bringing it back to the balcony in the end. It is still unknown whether Camila was unable to locate a different disposal place or if she just changed her mind. Nonetheless, her online activity and the camera revealed that she was aware of the body's presence and made an effort to control the fallout. Financial documents were also incorporated into the chronology. Camila took $600 out of a vacation savings account she and Tiara had set up last year on August 23. It was planned to be used for a vacation to the city of Orleans. Even in July, Tiara was still contributing to the fund, according to her mother. The assumption of Tiara's death was made the day after Camila withdrew. "We had no plans for a vacation. We did not spend the money." Camila failed to provide an explanation when questioned about the withdrawal. After looking through Camila's social media accounts, investigators found that she had removed almost all images of Tiara. On August 26, she posted a heavily filtered photo to her Instagram story, which was the only one taking a spontaneous picture of Tiara. Photos that were taken weeks ago and captioned with "always watching over me." The investigators found this post suspicious because of its manipulative tone, which could indicate an effort to influence the story or divert suspicion. There has been no official confirmation of Tiara's death as of the post's publishing. Following Camila's detention, the court ordered a psychological evaluation, which uncovered a pattern of symptoms. Characteristics like pathological attachment and dependent personality disorder were identified by a certified forensic psychologist. According to the assessment, Camila's emotional investment in the victim was so strong that it hindered her ability to act independently. According to Tiara's friends, Camila would get visibly angry whenever Tiara was around other people. An ex-co-worker of Camila's said that she was too possessive, unstable, and wary of anyone who approached Tiara. According to another witness, Camila told them, "She's all I've got." Camila was held without bond at Duval County Jail after the appraisal. During the weeks after her accusation, she tried to send multiple handwritten letters from her cell, but jail guards intercepted them all. The prosecution eventually characterized the language of the unidentified letters as suggesting emotional instability and possessive delusions, even though they were written to an unclear recipient. According to the prosecution, Camila West's motivation sprang from a fear of abandonment and an obsession with attachment, as stated in one letter that read, "She was slipping away from me. I couldn't let her abandon me like the others did." The trial started on December 2, 2024 in Duval County Circuit Court. The case had garnered a lot of media and public attention, and local stations had described it as one of the most emotionally charged in recent Jacksonville history. Assistant State Attorney Michelle Darrow led the prosecution and explained that Tiara Mills had been trying to get out of a controlling relationship. She had tried to get in touch with old friends, apply for. The prosecution argued that Camila West's increasing jealousy and emotional instability led to a tragic act of violence that was fueled by obsession and fear of abandonment. Darrow's strategy centered on Camila's actions leading up to and on the night of August 22. Forensic pathologists confirmed that Tiara's death was not sudden or accidental, the injuries indicated sustained force. Strangulation, according to their explanation, necessitated intent and pressure, continued throughout the course of the case. This was not a momentary lapse, one of the medical examiners said the jurors. The digital analysts were brought in to show the jury what Camila had been up to online, including some damning searches done after Tiara had passed away. The prosecution presented screenshots of her browser history along with questions like, how to hide a dead body, how long until body starts to smell, and, can vinegar cover decay? The prosecution contended that these searches were inconsistent and thus incriminating. Their symptoms were consistent with pathological attachment and emotional insecurity, as described by behavioral experts who were brought in to explain Camila's psychological profile. Court-appointed psychologist Dr. Lena Wallace testified that the defendant showed a clear reliance on the victim for emotional stability and identity, and that the fear of rejection was deeply internalized and perceived as existential. This testimony was backed by Camila's letters from jail. Excerpts from which were read aloud in court were as follows: "She kept slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it." On the fourth day of the trial, Tiara's parents, Shanda and Darius Mills, took the stand. Shandanda, who appeared distressed, gave her victim impact statement to the jury. "She was a good girl. She never caused trouble. I begged her not to stay there. I told her something felt wrong. I should have come and taken her back." Several times during her testimony, Shandanda's voice broke. Darius, on the other hand, spoke only once, stared down at the defendant and announced, "She was our only child and she's gone." The courtroom fell into a hushed silence as the defense, spearheaded by public defender Julian Rowe, presented an alternative story. They contended that Camila had a dissociative episode brought on by a history of emotional instability and childhood trauma. The defense maintained that the incident had not been planned. Rowe claimed that Camila had panicked, failed to understand what she was doing, and blocked the memory as a defense mechanism, indicating that she was mentally ill. Acting out of confusion rather than calculation, he informed the jury. However, during cross-examination, the prosecution disproved this claim. They brought attention to the sequence of searches, the physical cleanup, and the concealment of the body on the balcony. Darrell argued that these actions were methodical, not indicative of someone in a fugue state. Camila West knew Tiara was dead and knew she had to hide it, so she took steps to do just that. Camila West did not testify in her own defense, her attorneys advised against it, citing her. The prosecution rested its case in closing arguments, referencing Tiara's recorded voice from August 17. The message, which was brief and emotional, read, "She's starting to watch everything I do. If something happens to me, please look here." The courtroom fell silent as the final seconds played, and several jurors were seen wiping tears. Tiara's mental health condition was also mentioned, as was the risk of cross-examination undermining their argument. The jury found Camila West guilty on all counts in the state of Florida versus Camila West case on December 11, 2024. West was found guilty of second-degree murder and concealment of human remains in relation to the death of Tiara Mills. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read. Camila did not appear to react. Her defense team did not ask for an immediate appeal, but they did reserve the right to file post-trial motions. Judge Helena Griffin spoke at sentencing, which was held 2 weeks later, regarding the case. She spoke from the bench before an intimate gallery, painting a picture of an emotionally dependent woman whose murder was an avoidable tragedy stemming from possessiveness and emotional control. The court acknowledged the victim's family's profound loss and the irreparable impact of West's actions, and she handed down a 37-year prison sentence. West would not be eligible for parole until the end of her sentence, according to Florida law. She had served at least 30 of those years without a criminal record and had been assigned to a medium security facility in the northern part of the state after a psychological evaluation. Her intake record indicated that she was not suicidal but was at risk of isolation. After the trial ended, Shanda and Darius Mills left the courthouse for the last time, outside, with a small group of relatives and advocates from the Victim Services Unit. They let out one white balloon into the cloudy sky. There was no public statement issued after the moment captured by local media in Jacksonville. Instead, the family discreetly went back to their home. In Tiara's former bedroom, the books were still on the shelf, and her school planner was open to the week of her death. Her parents placed the unsigned and complete application to Florida A&M University in a memory box. They declined to discuss her belongings any further, saying only that they would keep the room as she had left it. Residents on the third floor continued to express discomfort about the events that had taken place there. A few quietly moved out. The balcony closet where Tiara's body had been discovered was sealed and remodeled. Although nothing in Florida state law prohibited the re-entrenal of the unit, property records showed that no new lease had been initiated by the time of the trial. Sunrise Palms apartment complex, Unit 3C remained vacant. Management confirmed that the unit was no longer being shown to prospective tenants. During a secondary crime scene review in late September, a previously undisclosed detail was discovered. Technicians were conducting a final forensic sweep inside the hall closet of apartment 3C when they removed a loose ventilation cover. Tucked neatly behind it, taped to the inside wall, was a single sheet of lined paper with Tiara's handwriting. The note was not dated, but investigators believe it was written sometime in August, perhaps 2 weeks prior to her passing, she wrote a single sentence that investigators would later characterize as a quiet plea: "This place doesn't feel like home anymore. I'm trying to find my way back." The note was returned to Tiara's parents, and a copy was added to the case file. By early 2025, sentencing had concluded, and the defense had waived all appeals. As a result, the state of Florida officially closed the case. No additional suspects were ever named, and no charges were filed beyond the initial filing. The charges against Camila West have been closed, with no further action being taken, as per the records of the relevant law enforcement agencies. All physical evidence has been recorded and preserved.